Okay, going right off recording a top 5 favorite companion mods to talking about why I love orcs. So, this is going to be an interesting video. Well, the question for this video, obviously given the title, is going to be why orcs are my favorite race in all of the Elder Scrolls. And it's kind of interesting actually. There's a lot to do with the lore, and it has a lot to do with how they play, and it has a lot to do with just how they look and why they're just so interesting. So, let's get into the video today, shall we? So I should probably start off with a proper intro. My name is Infinity Break, coming at you today with another video. Today, I wanted to discuss something that I actually kind of was thinking about for a while now. Like I normally do, I think of all these videos in advance, but this one's been in my mind for like almost a month now. And it's mostly because of the fact that a couple months ago I actually started feeling like this. I really like the orcs in the Elder Scrolls. I think their story is very interesting, and there's not many people out there that say that the orcs are their favorite race in the entire game. Like seriously, half the time it's either the Dunmer, the Argonians, or the Nords, because Skyrim is so popular. There are a couple other people that manage to top the list, but orcs don't necessarily always make it into the spotlight. And it has to do with how little we really know about them from their games, and how little they seem to be shown off, and how little chances they're given to shine, really. Which is one of the reasons I like them so much. They're the underdogs of the Elder Scrolls world. They don't really have a lot to their name, and ever since before Morrowind they weren't even a playable race. But why is that? What makes them so endearing, and why are they the underdogs in the Elder Scrolls universe? So like I said earlier, and some of you guys might not know this, the orcs have only been able to be a playable race since the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. In Daggerfall and Arena, both the orcs and the Imperials, actually interestingly enough, were not playable races. Mostly, the Imperial race wasn't playable because of the fact that they hadn't come up with the Imperial race. Most humans were considered Bretons or Nords, while the rest of the races like the Khajiits, the Argonians, and the Elves were all just races. The Imperial race itself was considered more of a term used for people who lived in the Imperial City and the Imperial Province. They weren't really given their own race, but after the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, they were given their own race. I don't really know what reason they decided to go with that creative decision, but I can say that that is exactly how it went. The same goes for the orcs. The orcs were present as an actual race inside the Elder Scrolls, but they were enemies mostly. In the Elder Scrolls 1 Arena, you would encounter them, and in fact one of the first side/main quests that you kind of did for one of the holds of the continent of Tamriel, you had to do a couple of missions in Arena, which involved you doing a favor or two for a duke or a mage or a priest or whatever, and then eventually you would get the information once you returned to them with the stuff that you decided to get for them or the deed that you decided to do for them. One of the first missions was you were supposed to stop an orc. I don't remember the exact name of this orc, but he was in a stronghold and you had to kill him and his other people that were trying to do something to the area. I don't remember the exact story, I just remember playing through it. I know for a fact that the orcs were in the first game, and they aren't really that much different than the orcs that appear in Skyrim. They majorly stay the same, they have tusks, they look different, they are green-skinned, have elvish ears, and they're very brutistic. The orcs have always been kind of shown off as this kind of background race. They weren't really brought into the main spotlight until Morrowind, but after Morrowind, they mostly just became a playable race, and they weren't really built upon as a race anymore. I know in Daggerfall that played a huge role, at least in one of the factions you could side with. In fact, in Daggerfall, the story that plays out for the orcs is probably considered one of the lore reasons as to why they are considered a major player after Elder Scrolls 2. See, in one of the endings for Daggerfall, you actually help out the orc, I suppose you could say the orc, I wouldn't say country, I would say their little area, their little province that they have by the time of Daggerfall. You help out Orsinium, at least in one of the endings, you help out Orsinium by helping the leader get the control rod, or the Mantella, that's what it was called. You help the orc leader get the Mantella, and after he has the Mantella, he uses the Mumidium to kind of, I wouldn't say go on a rampage, but he goes off and tries to show the Empire that the orcs deserve more respect, because they're kind of treated as one of the lesser races of Tamriel. You could kind of say that this was kind of the thing that spurred the whole talks with Uriel Septim, and allowed the orcs to get more recognition going into the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind. After all, Elder Scrolls 1 Arena, Elder Scrolls 2 Daggerfall, and Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind are actually all set in the 4th era, only about a maximum of 20 years apart from each other. I know it's only roughly 6 to 10 years for one of them, and I don't have the exact numbers in front of me. I just know that they're not that far apart from one another. But yes, up until sometime in the 4th era, the Empire and most of other places in all of Tamriel didn't recognize orcs as their own real race. They just kind of recognized them as sort of like the goblins and the ogres and other tiny minor races in the Elder Scrolls. They're so tiny and insignificant and don't hold that much power that they weren't really considered, being worth given any recognition to. But after Morrowind, or should I say after Daggerfall, there is a lot of talks afterwards, and the orcs are officially recognized as a playable race, as well as a respected race in Tamriel. Maybe not too respected, as a lot of orcs aren't really treated properly by a lot of the other races of Tamriel, but I do know that the Empire recognizes them a lot better, considering that in Skyrim, they are supposedly said by the loading screens, if I'm not mistaken. Also the orc description recognizes that the Empire does actually respect them because there are a lot of orcish blacksmiths in the Empire's legion. So moral of the story, the orcs had to fight for their representation, I suppose you could say. It's one of the reasons I kind of like them is they aren't really a playable race until Morrowind. I just think that's a very cool fact about them. They were added in along with the Imperials, which makes the Imperials and the orcs kind of like higher up on my list, I suppose you could say. But besides that, the orcs have a very interesting backstory. They aren't just like other forms of media that depict them as like these goblin-esque beings. The orcs are intelligent, they have rules, and they have a god, and it's very interesting to see how they became, because the orcs aren't just these random creatures that appeared on Tamriel. They were once elves, just like the Dunmer and just like the Altmer. So sometime during the Merethic era, sometimes people like to say it's the Dawn era. The sources differ greatly from where and when it took place, but it is said that sometime during the time of the Chinmer leaving the rest of their race behind in an effort to try and have a religious movement, following the Daedric princes Boethia, Azora, and I believe Mephala, they actually were trying to be intercepted by Trinimac and his followers, who thought that their religion was blasphemous, or something along the lines of them disagreeing on how something worked. The details aren't too well known to me. All I know is that during this battle, when Trinimac tried to cut off the Chinmer, who were leaving and trying to find their own way, and trying to find a place for themselves to set up, Trinimac and his followers cut off the Chinmer in an attempt to try and stop them and their lies, I suppose. It's a very big event in the Elder Scrolls lore because Trinimac and his followers would become the Orsimer. It's very weird what the whole thing was about. Something with the Drahani religion which the Chinmer were trying to form, where they worship the Daedra. And Trinimac just wasn't having it, because Trinimac was an Aedra, or should I say, one of the beings that was tricked by Lorkhan. The whole event just kind of transpired, and what ended up happening was Trinimac ended up getting bested by Mephala and Boethia, and Boethia ended up actually consuming Trinimac. And what ended up happening after this was she ended up spitting him out some things are a little bit more explicit. Some say that she pooped him out, I don't know, something like that. And what ended up becoming of Trinimac was Malakath. See, at this point, Malakath's followers were so loyal that they actually ended up, I guess, rubbing whatever excrement was left behind on their skin. I don't know, I didn't come up with this lore. All I know is that point forward, Trinimac's followers who were so loyal ended up turning into orcs. Both sides of this, which were the people who worshipped the Aedra and the people who worshipped the Daedra, used this event as propaganda in their own ways. It was interesting though, because out of this, the orcs weren't accepted by anyone. They ended up actually being treated as a beast race. The elves shunned them, and the Drahani hated them. So the orcs had to follow their own way, and basically follow Malakath, who was their priest that they were so devoted to. So yes, ever since their conception, the orcs have basically been scorned by everybody. The sucky part about it is that they don't even live as long as regular elves, I should say. They only live about as long as humans do. So they are already at a disadvantage, yet they still manage to overcome a lot of the odds half the time and actually push for, their own rights and their own abilities. They're really strong and very feared when it comes to, being a warrior. Most people don't want to fight orcs because they're so strong. Their Berserker Rage ability is extremely overpowered. If you played it in Skyrim, it's probably the most overpowered it's ever been. you'd basically dish out double damage and take half as much damage, making you almost unstoppable during most encounters, which makes it an amazing ability to have. The other thing about the orcs that kind of like sucks is the fact that their country or their home or whatever you want to call it, their province, Orsimer, has been sacked and destroyed multiple times, and yet they're so determined to have their own home like they should, they manage to always rebuild it, even though it always gets knocked down. And that's the thing that I love about the orcs so much, is that they're always so determined to do what they need to do, what they want to do. Now, they're not an evil race of people. I feel like, yeah, maybe they aren't the greatest as they sack a lot of things and destroy a lot of things that they come into conflict with, but at the same time, they're not really bad people. They just have their own code, they're pretty brutistic, sure, but if you have them as an ally, they're pretty loyal to you. If you come to their defense, they realize that that's actually a really cool thing for you to do, since not many people are willing to, stand up for them. If you befriend an orc, and you stand by him till the end, that orc, chances are, that orc will probably be with you till you die. And I don't mean they're gonna kill you, I mean they will literally be by you, fighting by your side until the day you die, which is pretty freaking awesome in my opinion. That's the thing about orcs. They don't trust that often, given how their nature and how they were formed was through betrayal, but they do trust when you prove to them that you're worthy of their trust, I suppose you could say. It's just, they are, I don't know, I feel like I can relate to them on that scale. They're so nice when you actually get to know them. Sure, I mean, like, they have their own set of rules and they're misunderstood, but once you understand them, they're not really that difficult to get along with. I think the Imperials have definitely understood what it's like to have the orcs on their side, because they are really, really talented blacksmiths, and they serve really well during the wars and, well, just in the Legion in general. They're really respected given how they make such good armor and how they're great warriors to have on the battlefield. But overall, yes, I mean, that's basically why I love the orcs so much. I just think that their race has gone through a lot, and I think I really relate to them at the end of the day. They're such a strong and hardy people, and they're very useful when you actually get them on your side. I think the way they look might be a little bit of a downside, but at the same time, I've actually grown accustomed to the way they look. I don't mind if they're a little bit hard on the eyes. They manage to actually grow on you after a while, and honestly, when you meet half the orcs in the game in Skyrim or any other game half the time, they're either kind of, a little difficult to get along with, or they're actually really nice. I mean, like, it's just one way or the other. But I have to say, that's really it. That's why I like the orcs. If you like this discussion and you want to see more stuff like this, how about you let me know down in the comments section? Why don't you let me know what your favorite race is in the entirety of the Elder Scrolls games, and maybe I'll do a video on them in the future if you really want me to. Until next time, this has been Infinity Break, reminding you all to say it with me now. Play well, eat well, and live well, friends. I hope you guys go out there and strive to break infinity.